to share what I know and what I've learned over the years and what has really made a difference for my students.
Okay, I've just started the recording, so we are now recording it. And I want to say hello to everybody and thank you so much for coming, and thank you for coming a little bit early. I'm glad you did, and it's wonderful to see your names all listed there. And I'm Regina Richards, and I'm president of the Southern California Tri-Counties branch of the International Dyslexia Association. And there's lots of branches for IDA. So I just want to do a few announcements. I mailed the handout to everybody whose email I had up until the time I stopped for dinner. But there was a few people that signed in after I went to dinner. So I think I'm missing 2 or 3 people. So if you don't have a handout, you can get it. Everybody should have a panel that has an orange arrow. It's called a control panel. Bonnie, do you see the control panel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
it's usually on the right side of your screen.
Yeah, and the arrow's pointing to the right. And down with the list here is a bunch of things: audio, dashboard, polls, questions, and then there's handouts. And it says there's one handout. And if you click that little arrow, and you click the blue writing, you can pull out the handout. So you won't be missing anything like that. Okay. And I told you I'm recording. And also there's a question section. The question section is right above the handout section. And there's also a chat section. But the question section I find easier because then I can answer it. And you can have, sometimes there's something that you can answer, you want the answer right away. And so that's what makes the question sections convenient. So I'm going to let Bonnie introduce herself because I think it shows better when she's introducing herself.
I'm going to move a little closer to my microphone.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, so I'm going to be sharing information tonight on the brain-body connections impact on reading and spelling skills. And it's really quite surprising and startling to see how much it impacts, because normally we only think of visual processing or auditory processing impacting reading skills. But in reality, the tactile kinesthetic areas, the brain-body connections really do make an impact. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. I am the author of the Scholar Within Reading program, reading and spelling programs at scholarwithin.com, as well as 5 minutes to better reading skills and 10 minutes to better study skills. And those programs and my materials are used all over the world. And
wow, that's fantastic.
I'm going to stop my webcam because it's just started glitching, and like I say, it always distracts me. Yeah, it's really fun when I, get contacted from South Africa or Ireland or the UK or Brazil, all over the world, and being able to help families. It's been very exciting. I am a frequent media guest on a variety of media, and I have 3 kids. They all tested to be gifted, but each one of them had something going on in addition to that, such as ADHD or auditory processing or visual processing problems. We kind of had it all, which I think a lot of families do. Again, I'm going to be speaking on the brain-body connection and how it impacts reading and spelling. I will answer questions at the end of the presentation. Just put them in the question part. Let's see. Again, I'm glad to be partnering with the Southern California branch of IDA to talk about the brain-body connection to reading and spelling. I've done other webinars with them before, and it's always been very gratifying to be able to do this. This topic, the brain-body connection, is very close to my heart because when I was in the third grade, I really wasn't reading very well. Not only did I not read well, but my teacher had the audacity to tell my mother that I wasn't reading well. And that had never happened to my siblings. I'm the youngest of 4. And so it was just, very mortifying as far as I was concerned. However, it was a really good thing. As a result of my mother being informed, we did, different things. And it took a while, but I was able to slowly climb out of the lowest reading group. And I have spent many years researching since then the best practices for teaching and learning reading, as well as how we learn through auditory, visual, and tactile kinesthetic processing. And as a college student, I took reading methods classes, but in those days, they didn't go into the science of reading and how we learn. There was no talk of visual processing or auditory processing, let alone tactile kinesthetic processing in relationship to reading. And I started thinking as I was preparing for this topic of the brain-body connection, and I thought back to what did help me remember how to spell my spelling words or learn my math facts. And it really was physical movement. I would go in the backyard and bounce a ball against the garage and spell my words and recite my math facts. And then I actually double did my homework. Now, who in the world does that? Well, I had a large blackboard in our basement, and I would play teacher after school because I wanted to be a teacher even as early as the second grade. And so I'd write my homework on the board, but of course you can't turn in the blackboard. So then I had to recopy it so I could turn it in. But doing that really made learning easier. Of course, at the time, I didn't know that I was activating the brain with the body movement, which ultimately made it easier for me to retain what I was learning. So what happened when I became a teacher? Well, I didn't really think about that at first. But after several years of teaching, I found myself double teaching, just like the double homework, double teaching several aspects of reading and spelling to be able to incorporate visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic processing into the reading and spelling lessons. And that's when I first saw a real uptick in my students' learning. So I knew I had to keep doing that, and that there must be a way to streamline how I taught so I didn't have to keep double teaching. And then I could get results faster. So I combined what I was doing into a shorter, more efficient method. And this explicit, systematic, and multisensory approach is designed for parents, teachers, and tutors to use with their students. Now, when we think of reading, we typically just think again of the visual and auditory processing systems. But a couple of other systems are involved that directly impact learning. The vestibular system, system of balance, and the tactile kinesthetic system, also thought as physical movement and touch. They are activated through receptors in the skin and help assure that information will be retained in long-term memory. That being said, in this session, you're going to discover 9 key tactile kinesthetic processing skills necessary for efficient reading, how the vestibular system and tactile kinesthetic system directly impact reading and spelling, what to look for in students that may have tactile kinesthetic processing issues, strategies to improve the brain-body connection and overall reading and spelling skills, and the role of technology and tools in assisting students with tactile kinesthetic processing challenges. The vestibular system. It's a complex system of neural pathways and structures that include the inner ear. It helps with your sense of balance, spatial awareness and orientation, and eye movements. And ultimately, it helps with your understanding of the relationship between items in the environment as well as items on a page. The haptic system, we have a new name here. We've always known it just as the tactile kinesthetic processing system, but they're also using the term haptic system. This system organizes and interprets information from touch, the tactile, and movement, the kinesthetic. This is where we stimulate touch, movement, and feedback. Touch, movement, and feedback promotes and enhances spatial awareness, spatial reasoning skills, language learning, and handwriting acquisition. These systems help you to identify and analyze the shapes, sizes, and directions of objects as well as the written word. So that being said, we're going to get into the brain-body connection, the tactile-kinesthetic journey. And here's a quick preview of what we're going to talk about tonight. How we learn, the brain-body connection, tactile-kinesthetic processing, the brain-body impact on reading and spelling, reading the foundation of learning, and then we're going to bring it all together. And again, I'll take questions at the end. And I have 3 special bonuses for everyone that I will share with you at the end of the webinar, and I know you don't want to miss out on that. And we'll wrap up again with specific actionable steps. So I hope that works for you, Regina.
That works fine.
Good. The first step is how to understand how we learn. This is important because when you understand how you learn efficiently and effectively, learning becomes easier and faster. We learn through the senses. We take in information through the senses. Everybody does this. No matter your skill level or grade level, we all learn through the senses. So let me elaborate just a little bit on that. We all have 5 senses: taste, smell, seeing, hearing, and doing, the tactile kinesthetic. But within each of those, there are subcategories. For example, with taste, we can taste sweet, sour, salty, and bitter, and we often choose according to those unique tastes. For example, potato chips or popcorn for the saltiness, ice cream for sweetness, lemons for sour, and chocolate can be sweet or bitter. Smell, we can smell a turkey dinner roasting, or brownies baking, or bleach, or cleaning products, savory, sweet, pungent, floral. And just like taste and smell have subcategories, the vision system, auditory system, and tactile kinesthetic system each have 9 specific areas that directly impact learning. So there's a total of 27 areas. The visual processing system, the auditory processing system, and the tactile kinesthetic processing system. And these 3 systems are at the core of learning. They are the foundations of learning. We use these 27 areas in our programs and our content lessons, as well as our executive function and brain-body activities and our games. These are the specific methods that work, are effective, and efficient. And this is why no matter if you're at grade level, above grade level, or below grade level, your skills improve. To begin with, the vestibular and tactile kinesthetic systems are much more than just movement and touch. It's the brain's ability to make sense of and interpret both movement, position, in space, and touch. These systems help you focus on, identify, and analyze words, sentences, and passages. These systems are also involved with muscle memory and even comprehension. And you don't have to look further than nature itself to understand how vital it is. Have you ever watched a parrot use his foot to grasp objects? African gray parrots often display a preference for using their left or right foot when grasping objects. This lateral preference indicates specialized brain hemispheres for motor control and object manipulation, enhancing their ability to handle food and tools with precision. This preference for using their right or left foot when grasping an object is an example of 6 areas of tactile kinesthetic processing. In other words, the ability to tell how far or near an object is to you, moving towards the object and deciding which foot to grasp the object with. These are critical skills that help your child focus on the important information, where it is located, as well as the ability to tell the difference between letters and words that look similar, like B and D or was and saw. Your ability to manipulate sounds and letters and spell words depends on those areas. And if you've ever seen a beaver dam, you've watched how beavers use their sense of touch, locomotion, laterality, directionality, contact, spatial temporal, and sensory perceptual processing to build dams. They manipulate logs, branches, and mud with their paws and teeth to construct sturdy structures. Their brain interprets tactile feedback to adjust their building techniques, ensuring the dam effectively controls water flow and creates a safe home. You know, every summer we go up to Lake Tahoe and we'll go over to Taylor Creek and see the beaver dams. It's quite intriguing. Well, we all use these same exact systems when we manipulate letters, write, spell, and read. We are constantly judging sizes, shapes, locations, how letters are put together to make words, and how to use that information to read with ease. And just like the parrot and the beaver, with practice and the right support, your child can develop their tactile kinesthetic processing abilities to enhance their reading and spelling skills. The brain-body connection, a deep dive. So what is tactile kinesthetic processing? This is your ability to use touch, movement, and muscle feelings to interpret objects and surfaces. This involves exploring objects in space, interpreting movement, touch, and the manipulation of objects or letters, and giving meaning to what is seen and touched. Just like the parrot and the beaver using their tactile kinesthetic and vestibular systems, we give meaning to what is touched and experienced. The vestibular system is the sensory system that sends signals to the brain to help us maintain balance and orientation. The brain takes in information from our visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic systems. Then the vestibular system sifts through the information. You know, the objects, the words, shapes, sizes, directions, and space, and takes all of that and interprets the data. Next, it sends it to specific areas of the brain to make sense of and retain meaning from it. And because we learn and read through eye movements, the vestibular system is a critical piece of the brain-body connection. Excuse me. As Dr. Paul Dennison, author of Switching On, A Guide to Edukinesthetics, states, there is an interdependence of physical development, language acquisition, and academic achievement. That being said, the vestibular and tactile kinesthetic systems are comprised of vital skills that help all of us decode the world of letters and words, interpret them, and gain meaning from them, enabling them to become confident readers and spellers. So let's get into these 9 areas, because it is helpful to know that if your child struggles with reading or spelling, it's not always a matter of effort. Sometimes they may be facing challenges with the vestibular or tactile kinesthetic systems. Identifying these challenges early can lead to targeted help and support, making a significant difference in your child's learning journey. So what I'm going to do is to define each area, and then I'll give you examples for when that area is difficult for a student. The first area is body image. This is the awareness of one's own body and how body parts relate to each other. In other words, it's the ability to use your body, eyes, hands, and or feet together to respond to your environment. Sarah has problems with body image. She struggles to sit still in class, constantly shifting in her seat. She often invades the personal space, bumping into or just being too close to her classmates without realizing it. And often kids get in trouble for that. They don't realize what the problem is because they don't have that sense of people's personal space. This is an area of perception. This is not something they're going to just, that they're doing maliciously by any means. When drawing, Sarah's figures are noticeably distorted. Sensory perceptual. This is your ability to take in information by hearing, seeing, doing, smelling, and tasting, and interacting with, interpreting, and understanding it. You can think of an eagle and his incredibly sharp vision, allowing him to spot prey from great distances. He uses his keen eyesight to detect movements of small animals on the ground. Their brain processes the visual information quickly to calculate the exact movement position, and distance they need to go. And then that enables it to actually move with precise hunting dives. For us, sensory perceptual is the ability to tell the difference between objects, shapes, letters, the sounds they make, as well as how they feel to the touch, and then manipulate them to make words. Even sentences and paragraphs, and interact with, interpret, and understand the content. In other words, what's the same and what's different. We have 3 chairs on the slide. All of them are different. They look and feel differently. Which one would be the most comfortable to sit in? Which would be the least? Just even thinking about that is activating your sensory perceptual processing, as well as body image and motor areas. Again, sensory perceptual includes telling the difference between letters. You see different shapes and sizes of the letters. There's different kinds of fonts. Can you see any relationships? Are there words that begin with the letter B? More than one? What about the letter T? Are any middle letters the same? You'll see this in students like Jackson. He struggles to understand how letters combine to form words, making reading a frustrating experience for him. He has difficulty grasping the relationship between sounds and letters, which slows down his progress in phonics lessons. Additionally, Jackson finds it hard to interpret facial expressions and gestures, which makes social interactions and understanding nonverbal cues challenging for him. Laterality. This is your internal awareness of the space located to the right and left of the midline of your body and how they work together and in oppositions. This is the sense of the right side of the body versus the left side of the body. Liam often has trouble judging how close or far objects are, causing him to misjudge distances when reaching for items or playing catch with his friends. He struggles with cutting paper accurately, frequently missing the lines, and finds writing challenging because he has difficulty aligning his letters properly on the page. It's interesting. I had a student many years ago that it never crossed his midline. Whenever he was writing and he'd get to the other side of the paper, he actually physically turned his body. And I ended up going into the school that he went to and mentioned it to the principal to, give a message to his teacher. And they had no idea. But this was a real problem because he couldn't even cross his midline. So directionality is our next area. This is the ability to take the awareness of your left and right, laterality, into the space beyond your fingertips. Directionality is the ability to see right and left on other objects. With directionality, you're able to detect how words appear left to right on a page of text. Visual perception and spatial awareness are tied directly to laterality and directionality. So here are several examples of directionality combined with visual discrimination and form constancy. In other words, a shoe is a shoe is a shoe, no matter what direction it is facing. A book is a book is a book, no matter what direction it is facing. But letters do not always have form constancy. The letters B, D, P, and Q are all the same shape, but they face different directions. We teach those differences with a story and hand movements, giving kids an association, which makes it easier. Whenever you teach with an association, you're able to retain the information easier. Well, Emily often confuses letters like B and D when writing, making it difficult for her to spell even simple words correctly. She also struggles with letter sequences. She'll have all the correct letters in the word, but they're not in the right order. This reminds me of a time when I was visiting my sister. We went to a holiday crafts fair, and we got there early, and my sister parked the car. It was in a very small town in Indiana. Well, after spending all day at the fair, and as the day proceeded, it got to be very, very busy. We went to go back to the car, but she had forgotten where we had parked. Well, I wasn't driving, so I didn't pay any attention to where she parked. Well, it took us like 2 hours to find the car. And we were so hot and tired by the time we found the car. It was unbelievable. Directionality problems had struck again. Locomotion. This is your ability to move in a direction from one location to another, to change positions and location of your body or objects, to move in a coordinated manner, even putting lines together to form a shape or letter. You can see this in animals like the gibbon leaping in the trees. Kids do this throughout the day as they move around the classroom, as well as on the playground and even playing soccer or baseball. Problems show up in kids like Mark. Mark doesn't plan his movements like the gibbon does. He'll wander around the classroom when he needs to sharpen his pencil instead of going straight to the pencil sharpener. He's also the student that has handwriting that is inconsistent, with uneven letters and even shaky lines due to his struggles with fine motor control. Contact. This is the ability to perceive, recognize, be aware of objects, and judge sensations through the sense of touch. This also is the ability to tell the difference between hard and soft, bumpy and smooth, even slimy and gooey. Well, Sophia avoids touching certain materials like clay or sand, finding the textures uncomfortable and overwhelming. She struggles with holding a pencil properly, which affects her handwriting, making it difficult for her to form clear and consistent letters. Even holding a book while reading can be a challenge for Sophia, as she finds it hard to maintain a steady grip and keep her place. Spatial temporal. This is the ability to understand how objects fit together in space and to be able to move and turn them in your mind. I think most of us have struggled with this at one time or another. You know, have you ever walked into a room and go, what was I looking for? You can't remember what you walked into the room for, or you can't remember where you've left something. Well, what about having a disorganized desk or kitchen drawer? When you were learning to write, did you have good spacing of your letters and words? Have any of your kids ever said that it's going to take them all night to get their homework done? But when they finally get doing it, it really only took like 20 minutes? Those are all problems with spatial temporal area. Motor. The motor area is involved with planning, control, and execution of voluntary movements. Walking, running, and jumping with ease, writing with proficiency. It also involves speech and performing gross motor actions that I mentioned, as well as the fine motor actions like writing, painting, and even turning a page. In reading, the motor area is all about how well you can move your eyes across the page quickly and efficiently from left to right, how you hold your book and follow along with reading, your ability to turn pages, your ability to take notes, your ability to read aloud, your ability to point to illustrations and compare them, even your ability to gesture while explaining what you have read. You know, the people that talk with their hands. I do that all the time. These examples show how the motor area of the brain plays a crucial role in various aspects of the reading process, from basic physical actions to complex coordinated tasks. So let me tell you about Ethan. He has trouble holding a pencil properly, and his handwriting is often sloppy and illegible. making writing assignments a frustrating experience for him. He frequently struggles to catch or throw a ball accurately during recess, and sometimes he loses his balance when jumping or skipping. And guess what? You can be great with gross motor skills and still have problems with fine motor skills. I have actually had students that were extremely talented gross motor-wise, but fine motor, they pretty much stunk. One student's writing looked like a second grader's, and he was in the 6th grade. Sensory motor integration. This is the ability to integrate all of the sensory input with motor information to allow for skilled movements. This is the link between the nerves, the sensory system, and the muscles, the motor skills, to receive information, interpret it, and organize it. In agility courses, dogs must navigate obstacles like jumps, tunnels, and weave poles. They use their vision and sense of movement to judge distances and coordinate their movements precisely to complete the course. You'll also see sensory motor integration with cats, using their vision and balance, the vestibular system, to climb trees and furniture. The sensory input helps them judge distances and coordinate their paw movements to grip and ascend surfaces safely. You might think of the cartoon from the Family Circus where Billy wanders all around the neighborhood in order to get home, instead of just crossing the street. I had a student that would pretty much do that. He would wander all around the room to get to where the door was. And I'm looking, and the first time that I, really became aware of this, I was teaching at Illinois State University, and I'm like, what in the world is he doing? He just needed to walk in a diagonal manner to get to the door. But no, he's all around the room. There was no straight line for him to get there. Additionally, identifying and matching objects by touch might be difficult. Knowing opposites and prepositions, right from left, up from down, forward from backward, outside and inside, or under and over might be difficult. And this will also lead to difficulties with judging time. So how does tactile kinesthetic processing work? We have a continuum, and you'll notice that these skills are present in learning to decode, read, as well as encode, spell. The first step is awareness, and this starts as early as infancy. You know how it is. Babies are always bringing objects to their mouth. That is how they explore their world. Well, as you get older, this also involves body image and spatial awareness. Being able to sit still, being able to honor others' personal space, writing with good spacing between letters and words. Discrimination. This is often guided by the vision system. Touch and movement, contact, motor skills, and sensory motor integration. It's easy for one to see the differences in letters and words, cat and cot. Matching objects or words is easy for them. Identification. Finding and recognizing differences in which way a letter is facing, B's and D's, reversals, proper sizing and shapes of letters. This is where you are using 7 areas of tactile kinesthetic processing. This is where tracking is developed. The ability to move your eyes in a smooth, even movements to track a ball, catch a ball, mop a spill, and track words across a page. You are able to remember where you left something. You have a neat and orderly desk, and this also impacts your writing ability. And finally, cognitive processing. Focus and perceive objects, words, sentences, and passages. Repetition and mental rehearsal are engaged. Higher order thinking is activated. Short and long-term memory is activated. You're able to retain what you have read and then categorize it and make associations with the information and use it at a later time. For example, as you practice note-taking to improve comprehension skills, at first it's usually a little bit tough. Most students that I've worked with over the years would just stare at blank sheets of paper. So then we made specifically designed graphic organizing forms, so they just had to fill in the blank. Well, note-taking became much easier, but even the first time out, it was so much easier than the blank sheets of paper, but it still seemed like work to them. But the more they rehearsed it, the more they repeated it, it made it easy. So repetition and mental rehearsal made a huge difference in learning skills. So as we get into tactile kinesthetic processing and reading, we must be aware of the 5 principles to teaching reading, as they all encompass teaching spelling. So the brain-body impact on reading and spelling. Phonemic awareness is your ability to manipulate sounds in the language, phonics and spelling, matching sounds to letters. Fluency, your speed or rate of reading without conscious attention to the mechanics of reading. Vocabulary, word knowledge and factual knowledge base. And comprehension, understanding, analyzing, synthesizing, and using what you have read. These principles all involve auditory, visual, and tactile kinesthetic processing. So how does this work? The secret sauce, combining tactile kinesthetic processing with both auditory and visual processing, is the secret sauce. You really need all processing systems firing to learn with ease. By adding in the tactile kinesthetic component, you are able to manipulate the letters and see the patterns. This gives additional cues for decoding quickly and helps to solidify memory and learning. Phonemic awareness and phonics, the alphabetical principle. That's also known as auditory visual integration and sensory perceptual. I'm sure you remember that phonemic awareness is the ability to hear, identify, and manipulate the individual sounds, the phonemes. And of course, the manipulation of sounds is a sensory perceptual event. And the most important forms of phonemic awareness to teach are blending and segmentation. So we start with phoneme blending. Children listen to a sequence of separately spoken phonemes and then combine the phonemes to form a word. You'll want to add in the tactile kinesthetic component. Use blank tiles or colored paper to show that a sound is represented by a color. This will help your kids pull apart the individual sounds and words. I typically use blue for consonants and red for vowels, since the vowels give the voice to the word. I want them to be a different color. After practicing with several words, have your students put the tiles or squares down to represent the sounds they hear, which brings us to the next slide. It's critical to hear the sounds, the auditory representation, to show the letters, the visual representation, and then pull the sounds together to make words. Then you can even move letters around and see what happens, how words change when teaching reading. We segment words into individual sounds and we map those sounds to letters that represent them. Grapheme mapping, the alphabetic principle. Whoops, excuse me. Phoneme grapheme mapping is impacted by all the areas of processing. Children listen to a word and segment it, break it up into the individual sounds. And see all those areas of tactile kinesthetic processing that are helping you do this. A grapheme is the letter or combination of letters used to represent a phoneme. That phoneme could be represented by these graphemes: F, FF, PH, or GH. In the words fan, off, phone, and graph. Being able to decode words quickly and accurately depends on the student's abilities with tactile kinesthetic processing as well as their knowledge of phoneme-grapheme correspondence. In other words, where does the f sound appear in the words? Is it at the beginning or at the end? What different symbols represent that sound? Children break down a spoken word into its separate phonemes. Cat, 3 sounds, 3 letters. K, a, t. You can start with using blocks as grapheme placeholders, and after that substitute in the letters, the graphemes that represent the sounds. We do a simplified version of this in our spelling program. Again, doing activities that allow your kids to play with the letters and move them around. Visual grapheme phoneme blending. This involves seeing a printed word, sounding it out, and blending the sounds together. In other words, visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic. Children use the same process when they see the printed word, sounding out the graphemes, the letters, and blending them together to read the word. There is a reciprocal relationship between the visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic areas that makes learning to read easier. It's the combination of the auditory with the visual and tactile kinesthetic that gives us the ability to visually map letters and change their order to make new words. Remember, phonemic awareness instruction can help preschoolers, kindergartners, first graders, and even older, less able readers. Additionally, all students, no matter their age, use these same skills when they come upon a complicated word they are unfamiliar with. Word families help children learn to read and spell. Cat, pat, hat, sat. What is the same? Oh, the ends of the words are the same. What is different? Oh, the beginning sound. And in the second list, bake, cake, lake, take. Again, the ending of the words are all the same. Each is a list of rhyming words. And now notice the first list has short vowel words in the vowel consonant pattern, and the second list has long vowel words in the vowel consonant silent E pattern. The more students manipulate letters themselves, the easier it will be for them to become familiar with and proficient in both reading and spelling. Look at what happens if we just change the beginning sound. Cat, pat, hat, sat, that. Look what happens if we just change the ending sound. Sat, sap, sand. Or the middle sound. Tap, tip, top. This again is where tactile kinesthetic processing comes into play, and the more you play with letters and words, the easier reading will become. So let's move on to step 4, reading the foundation of learning, where you get more into the methods to incorporate tactile kinesthetic processing skills. There is a systematic process to teach reading and spelling. This is the science of reading. According to the National Reading Panel, these are the 5 principles of reading. And we want to teach these principles in a visual, auditory, tactile, kinesthetic manner in order to get the best results. Phonemic awareness, phonics and spelling, fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. Snow, Griffin, and Burns state, spelling and reading build and rely on the same mental representation of a word. Knowing the spelling of a word makes the representation of it sturdy and accessible for fluent reading. Arian Snowling found that the ability to read words by sight, in other words, automatically, rests on the ability to map letters and letter combinations to sounds. And mapping letters and letter combinations to sounds depends on laterality and directionality. Linton and Miller found that integrating physical activity into elementary school lessons in reading, math, and other subjects can boost students' academic learning. Fielding and Pearson found that comprehension is now viewed as a much more complex process involving knowledge, experience, thinking, and teaching. This means the sensory perceptual area of tactile kinesthetic processing must be activated to interact with, interpret, and understand what you have read. So how do you do this? Well, we help teach your kids in a step-by-step manner that is multisensory, visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic, Orton Gillingham based, which ultimately makes reading easy. We follow the science of reading. So when choosing a reading program, first you want to be sure to choose one that is research-based and results-proven step-by-step program that includes all 5 principles of reading, as they are critical for reading and spelling success. Secondly, you want to be sure that the program incorporates visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic methods to get optimal learning. We do that with our alternating schedules of daily work, and we include step-by-step multisensory activities in our program, and then add in a few extra activities such as games, brain-body activities, and executive function activities to round out learning. We rotate through all 5 principles each and every week. Excuse me, I need a sip of tea. One parent said, "We started on Monday with twin boys aged 13, and it is going so well. I'm an educator and am no stranger to various programs out there. We have tried dozens over the years. This program is broken up into easily accessible chunks of learning and achievement. They are more confident and eager to continue than with any other program. I am one happy and relieved mama to find something that keeps them engaged and learning." Here are a few other comments. "My daughter has not only increased her words per minute, but also has improved her comprehension. The video and spelling and phonics lessons are like having a private tutor in our own home. The games were really enjoyable. We even played them after the lesson was over for the day." So how do we bring it all together? It's time to bring everything together and see how we do this. Let's take a closer look. The foundation of reading is built upon sounds and the letters that represent them and how we put them together to make words. We've already seen how tactile kinesthetic processing impacts reading and spelling when we looked at the rhyming words and changing out the order of letters. So let's continue on to see the process using visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic processing when teaching spelling skills. Then we'll move on to improving both decoding and comprehension skills. Spelling is the inverse of reading. Reading is decoding words or sounding them out, whereas spelling is encoding words or putting letters together to form words. Spelling is based on auditory sounds and visual symbols, letters and the order they are put together. Spelling is systematic. You can learn the formula to spelling. You can learn why we spell words the way we do. You can move letters around and see what happens. Dr. Louisa Moats states in her 2005 article, "How Spelling Supports Reading," the nature of the English language's spelling writing system provides reason to believe that there would be significant benefits to older students to continue spelling instruction. So we teach spelling in a visual, auditory, and tactile way with spelling patterns to all levels K-8. We use a method that is visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic. Each week, we group a set of 10 words according to their spelling patterns. We always pair the auditory with the visual and tactile kinesthetic learning. In this way, kids are able to identify and associate sounds with the letters that represent them and then categorize them by spelling patterns. So let me show you what I mean. And these are just clips out of our some of our videos. So what does that say? CT. That's just the letters. What does it say? Is there any meaning there? Now, what if I were to do this? Cat, cot, cut. By adding an vowel between the consonants, we have words. And all of these words are in what we call the vowel consonant pattern. The vowels all give their short sound. The vowels are the star of the word. They give voice to the words. They give the pizzazz to the words. We recognize that without a vowel, all you have is consonants stuck next to each other with no meaning. And the vowel pattern always starts with the first vowel. So you can have no beginning consonant sound and your vowel pattern. And the word is at. You can have one beginning consonant sound and the vowel pattern, cat. Two beginning sounds and the vowel pattern, stop. Even three beginning sounds and the vowel pattern, strip. And spelling patterns work in multisyllable words too. Picnic, beginning consonant sound, vowel pattern, beginning consonant, vowel pattern. And robin, again, the vowel pattern starts with the first vowel, so we have a beginning consonant vowel pattern, and then vowel pattern. Altogether, we have 8 spelling patterns. For our spelling lessons, we give a sound at a time so your child can identify which sounds are represented by which letters. We always pair the auditory input with the visual and tactile kinesthetic. We show the pattern so kids can see how letters are put together to make words. This combines phonemic awareness and phonics with visual, auditory, and tactile kinesthetic processing. You know, over the years, I've had so many students that had either visual memory problems or auditory memory problems, and even muscle memory problems. For them, memorizing 30 spelling rules was setting them up for failure. Teaching the structure of the language, the 8 patterns, was much easier. We only put letters together 8 ways to make words. That's when I started setting my kids up for success. When you learn how to use the patterns, you can spell tens of thousands of words. We teach with video lessons. Students have their corresponding worksheet. We teach the spelling pattern, then we give a sound at a time. Kids write each individual sound down. They check with the video to see if they got them. Then they pull the sounds together and say the word. Here's one of our younger students. One of the benefits of the video lessons is that they can be paused as well as reviewed multiple times. There are a variety of spelling activities that come with the lessons for each age group in addition to the video lessons that encompass visual and tactile processing puzzles and activities, as well as card games. And here are some pictures of our older students. Slides, you'll notice a lot more difficult words. Kids do their test along with the video. And we want to be sure that we're addressing all of the areas of tactile kinesthetic processing since movement boosts student learning. So we add in some brain-body connection activities a couple of times a week. Here we are working on a balance beam as well as playing hopscotch. Here we've got a jumping game and playing on the playground. Here doing soccer drills as well as throwing beanbags up in the air. And you start off with a beanbag throwing with both hands and catching it with both hands when it comes back down, making the 2 sides of your body move exactly the same way. Then you throw and catch the beanbag with both hands, making the beanbag go as close to, if you're in a room, as close to the ceiling as you can. Then you want to throw it and just have it 3 feet below the ceiling. So we're judging distance also. You start off throwing and catching with 2 hands, and then you move on to doing 1 hand in specific sequences. They can even bounce a ball while spelling their spelling words. You can also do these beanbag activities with a ball. Remember, specific movement exercises such as beanbag and ball activities can have a profoundly positive effect on learning as they promote the integration of both sides of the body, assist with visual tracking, and exercise some of our most basic physical processes. All of these activities incorporate strengthening the vestibular and all 9 areas of the tactile kinesthetic systems. Again, this is why we include brain-body activities in our reading and spelling programs. So we are still bringing it together. We're going to talk about fluency here. Fluency is your ability to read smoothly and quickly from left to right without having to sound out each syllable. One of the best ways to ensure comprehension is to include writing. Writing helps us to become good at thinking. I like to say writing is the doing part of thinking. The use of the graphic organizers for taking notes helps improve visual memory skills of what you have read, which also improves comprehension. And our last area, vocabulary, yes, even vocabulary, we incorporate tactile kinesthetic, visual and auditory processing skills. And you'll find that many of our reading selections also provide specific vocabulary sections. So we're going to go ahead and go to the website. And this is the welcome page. I always say, if there's a video, please watch it because there's some good information in there. And then we're going to go over to week 1. And this is a family with 3 students. I can show all 3 at once, or I can show one at a time. If I'm a parent checking things, I most likely am going to look at all of them once, but as my kids are working on them, they only need to see their own work. We start off with daily planning. That's our executive function piece. We have additional executive function activities throughout the program. Then we have our reading fluency drill, and then reading and taking notes. So there's a summary at the top, and then you just scroll down. The papers, the worksheets are printable. We also have print material available, so you don't have to print things out yourself. So we have video directions. This only takes you 5 minutes once you get doing it. The first day it might take 7 or 8 minutes, but after that you're done with it in 5 minutes. Then we learn how to read and take notes. We've got an overview video. And then we have our different worksheets. This is the reading selection. And I wanted to show you that. I already opened it up because we have what we call tap to read. And so if you don't know what a particular word, how to pronounce it, and you've tried to sound it out, but you're still struggling with it, I can tap it. Connected. And it will read the word to me. And I'm going to reload this page just so that we start it from scratch. Here we go. Let's say I'm having trouble with this word. Invention. It's going to pronounce the word for me. I can also click the arrow here and read along with. A series of cars that are connected. The first trains were pulled. And you can see how things are tracking, helping you track the words. You can change the speed. That's at a normal speed. You can put it as a slower speed, a very slow, a faster, or very fast speed. You can also change the size of your font, making it bigger or smaller. That's basically what one of the reading selections looks like.
Excuse me, Bonnie, I just want to say one thing though, that when we're doing a webinar, the audio doesn't come through.
Yeah. Well, can you see the blue of the tracking?
Yeah, I see the blue. So that's good.
So it's reading it to you so I'll reload the page and I'll just read it to you so you can see better. So if I don't know, I'm struggling with pronouncing this word, I'm going to click on it and it's going to say invention. If I want to read along with the selection to help me read a little bit faster, I can click on the arrow here. A train is a series of cars that are connected. The first trains were pulled using horses. So it's reading, I can read along with it, and that will be improving those specific skills of laterality, directionality, visual tracking, as well as decoding and comprehension. So, there's a lot of ways that you can manipulate this. It was quite interesting. A number of years ago, I think it was maybe 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, I came upon this, text to read kind of thing. And I said to Nick, my partner, hey, can you make this application for us so that we can use, do this, because it would really help my students. And he said, okay, I'll work on it. And a couple of months later, we had Tap to Read. So it's really made a huge difference for our kids and for their fluency, as well as comprehension. So now they've read the selection. Well, after they've read the selection, they need to know how to take notes. And so I'm going to forward this up a little bit to see if I'm at the right spot. I just want to show you how we are showing them. They have their form that's in their booklet or that they've printed out, and they're writing about the beginning of the selection. And so what we're doing is we're highlighting on the selection the kinds of things they should be taking notes on, so that they go, oh, that's how I'm supposed to take notes. Oh, now I can press the easy button and do it. And so we're showing them step by step how to take notes. And so it makes it really, really easy for the kids. So I want to go ahead and go back to the presentation. And so you can see how we've done at the top of some of the reading selections. We had the vocabulary piece. We've done the spelling, the reading fluency, and the comprehension. And so we've actually gone on our journey from A to B. How we learn, a deep dive into the 9 areas of tactile-kinesthetic processing, the impact it has on reading and spelling, and reading being the foundation of learning. And we've brought it all together with step-by-step methods that incorporate tactile-kinesthetic processing skills in the methods we use to teach and learn spelling, encoding, and reading, decoding, as well as comprehension skills. And remember, these are all life skills. We love the reading and spelling program. My daughter has not only increased her words per minute, but also has expanded her comprehension. She's learning valuable note-taking strategies and has drastically improved her spelling. She also enjoys the content. We're excited to see her growth. My daughter is begging me to do your reading skills program again to strengthen her skills. The guides for note-taking and how to pick out important information was only second to the fun activities each day last year. We look forward to seeing what's in store for this year. So I hope you've gotten something out of this, learned how the vestibular system and tactile kinesthetic impact learning, learned some new techniques, and have seen the possibilities that instruction that emphasizes the tactile kinesthetic areas can make a real difference for your students. And for those of you that have hung in with me, I do have several gifts for you, and then we're going to answer some questions that have come in. And we have a free reading screen so that you can see if your kids are reading at grade level or where they should be reading. Free reading fluency drill to help them with their accuracy and speed. Free how to learn to spell best practices guide, and that's at scholarwithin.com/IDA. And you can try our Tap to Read at scholarwithin.com/read-aloud. And we'll send that information out to you. And I believe it's on the slides that we gave you also. And for those of you that would like to join us, we do have a special new members get $30 off yearly memberships with promo code IDA-SoCal. Current members, just email us and you can get a free daily planner. And these are all valid until Wednesday at midnight. And we can start going through some questions. So I'm going to let you get the questions to read out loud, or did you want me to do that, Regina?
I'm sorry, I was still muted. There's not a lot of questions written out.
Okay.
So if you have questions, please write them in the question section and I'll read them for Bonnie.
And while they're doing that, I want to give a special thank you to you, Regina, and to the Southern California Tri-Counties branch of IDA for inviting me to do this webinar. Like I say, I always enjoy sharing what has made tremendous difference in the lives of my students. It's so fun to, sometimes I will be at a grocery store and I run into a parent and they'll just rave on how well their kids are doing. And it's all because of you. It made such a difference.
And that's so great when you hear something like that.
It is. It
I
is.
want to let you know that you gave wonderful examples of so many of the techniques and so many of the topics, and you made the examples come to life.
Oh, good.
And
Thank you.
that's
I
so
always
important
worry
when
about
you're doing
that.
a webinar. I thought that was great.
Pardon me?
I thought that was great. I
Thank
also loved how you said writing is the doing part of thinking. That's so true.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't think about that. And they like to do all of this typing. And you notice we have graphic organizers that kids actually fill out. And I have a video in the program that explains the reason why you physically fill it out. Because if you are typing, the sensations on your fingertips are all identical. If you are physically writing, there's a different neural impress going into your brain that is helping you to retain what you have written.
That's so true.
And studies have shown, they've done a couple of university studies back east, and the kids that were typing their notes while they were in their class versus those that were physically writing them did not do near as well as those that physically wrote their notes. There was a huge difference. And so, it really does matter with what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And so once you explain that, kids go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
It really makes a difference. So we find that kids advance faster, learn more efficiently, and they can actually finally make sense of reading and spelling. And I can't tell you how many parents even say, I never knew that. I never knew that.
I bet a lot of them say that.
And
I also love the way you teach taking notes to the kids. You made it so concrete.
Thank you.
And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, like I say, the kids used to just stare at blank sheets of paper. I'm like, what's with that? Or when one of my boys was in middle school, he came home and he had to write a paper on, I can't remember the topic, I'll just say on Lincoln, and he's writing all kinds of stuff, and I don't know how to do this, and he's putting stuff down. And finally I said to him, didn't anybody ever tell you, first you tell me what you're going to talk about, then you tell me all about it, then you remind me what you told me. No. So he started writing. It was so cute. He says, I'm going to tell you all about Abraham Lincoln. And then
that's so
great. Goes on to all of these different wonderful facts. And he concluded it. And I said, that is great. The only thing we need to do is we're going to line out. I'm going to tell you all about, we're going to jump right in. Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president, and we'll go from there. And he comes home with an A. He'd been getting C's on his papers. And I'm like, what's with that? And that's when I said, hey, this is how we do it. It does not have to be so hard. Reading doesn't have to be so hard. Spelling doesn't have to be so hard. And, I tried everything in the book because spelling was hard for me as a kid. And reading was hard for me. And it's like, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be that way. And when I see kids struggling all the time, I'm like, oh man, it doesn't have to be so hard. But we have to incorporate certain things to make it easy.
And you have to make it fun too.
Exactly. And, we're going to be, quick activities. Some are only 5 minutes long. Some might be 10 minutes. And then, there's a couple that are 15 minutes. That's it, quick in and out. And you don't have to do them, sitting for an hour straight. You can do a little bit now and a little bit later. You can do it on your time frame. So it really makes a huge difference. So we've been really happy about that. We also work with a lot of charter schools. And you can, just check to see if Scholar Within is on your school vendors list. And if it's not, just request that we get on it, because it's not a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I just found a whole bunch of questions
Oh,
They
good.
were in a different question section. I don't know why.
Huh.
Nick Terry, I think you know him, says, thank you, just getting acquainted with this format and looking at the handout. And then Vidya, I can't pronounce it. Hi, I'm not able to unmute. Oh, well, I'm so excited to join this webinar. Debbie Benvuto said that. She also said, hi there, I'm so excited to join this webinar. My name is Debbie, I'm from New Jersey. And she says, got it, thank you. And then when you have a moment, will you please repeat the skills associated with the steps? Karen Briegel said it. I don't know what steps she means.
Maybe she's talking about the 4 steps of the processing.
Could be, yeah.
I'd have to go back, and I don't know that I can find that very quickly. You know, what I was doing there is kind of combining. Here we go. You know, we have awareness, then we have discrimination, then we have identification, and then we have cognitive processing. And I think you have that slide in the handout.
Okay. And then someone, Debbie again asked, will there be a certificate of attendance? The answer is yes. And it's in the handout section that will be on the website once we get the website all set up. So right now, and it's called a blank certificate. The blank part is where you put your name. The rest of it is not blank. So people get confused about that.
Yep.
And Debbie also said this was fantastic with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 exclamation points.
Oh, thank you.
And
Now,
Tina Garza said, not a question, just wanted to say great job and thank you. I agree, it was a great job. Thank you for the free gifts. You're so thorough that I really don't have questions. I love the handouts also. How long does an individual spelling lesson take? Connie Gallagher.
it depends on if you're like a kinder kid or versus an 8th grade. The 8th graders lessons are a little bit longer. The kinder kids might be about 12 to 15 minutes, and the 8th graders might go up to 22, 24 minutes for the lesson. And then, they've got puzzles to do, and there's other activities for them throughout the week. And then on Thursday, we do the test. I'm doing the test online. They're listening and filling out their test sheet.
Uh-huh.
And they're pretty much independent on that once they've, gotten the system. The older kids, it's like, a piece of cake. And we do provide the answer sheets and all of that. Let me go.
Okay. And there's another question from Christy Piliode in Florida. She said, my kids came home and said they were told they have to write in blue ink because their brains will retain it better. Have you ever heard of that?
There are different colors that are color preferences, and blue is a good one. Yellow kind of screams at you. And so you're like, I really, it's good for highlighting things, but for all of what you're reading, no, it's not. So, it really, I do use color a lot, and even in our note taking, we do suggest, I'm looking for something. Here we go. I was looking for something else, actually. You do find the that color helps you to retain information better. And so if I have a reading selection and I'm taking notes on what happened at the beginning, the middle, and the end, we take the notes, and the little kids, the kinders and the first graders, they dictate their notes, and that's perfectly fine. And then as they're able, they'll write a note and I'll write a note. They'll write a note and I'll write a note. Or I'll have them copy or trace the notes after they've dictated and the parent has written them out. Then they can trace them or copy them. So that we're progressively, over a number of weeks, having them do more writing of that to have that practice. But then after they've done that, when we're looking them over, I'll say, well, what was at the beginning? And they'll tell me. And so I'll say, well, let's code that in green because that's where you started. And what was in the middle? And they'll tell me. And I say, well, let's code that in yellow because that's the middle. And then what happened at the end? And let's code that as red because that's what happened at the end. So we have green for go and red for stop, and yellow is in the middle, just like a stoplight.
That's so cool.
You know, so we do,
Another question is
use a lot of color, but to some kids, the blue will be fine and will be helpful, but some kids, it's not their best color. There's something called reading by the colors. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. And that's dealing with scotopic syndrome. And so for some people, the blue or the green, their overlays make reading much easier. For others, it might be purple, and some even it is the yellow or the orange. And so we test kids to see which will be the most helpful. So that's called scotopic syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can see here we have questions, and then we provide the answers so that the kids can check to see how they did.
Yeah, Carol says she has 2 children with different disabilities, and one is 2 years behind and his grade level, and the others is bright but struggles to focus. Can your program help each of them, and will it be easy for me to set them up?
Yes and yes. The reason it's going to help even the ones that have trouble with focusing is because we have this executive function piece. And kids that have trouble focusing or have ADHD, they all have problems with executive function. And so, and this is an ignored piece in the classroom. And so we teach you, how to daily plan, how to do goal setting, how to, figure out, like when my example of when you say, how much homework do you have? Oh my God, it's going to take me a whole night, Mom. And then it only took 20 minutes. Well, we have them write on their form, it's going to take me all night. And then we look at the clock when they start it and then when they finish it, and we check the time. Well, it took you 20 minutes. Oh. And so the more you do this, the more it helps them to get that sense of time passing. And so we have a lot of activities. We spend several weeks, with lessons and even videos. I'm trying to think if it's on week 2 or week 3, the goal setting. I can't remember. You just scroll down to, here's an executive function piece, setting your priorities and priority planning.
But another question from Debbie Benvenuto. She says, how do you feel about teaching kindergarten kids letter names before sounds and vice versa?
Well, if they have a name but they don't have an association with it, it's kind of difficult.
Right.
So I always pair them together.
Pairing is a good strategy.
Yeah, and then we'll put magnetic letters in the bathroom for when they're taking a bath, or on the refrigerator, and we'll make words. We'll also use I used to have whiteboards that I put in the kids' bedrooms when they were kinder kids. And at night we'd talk about, what did you do today? And so they'll give me a sentence and I write it down, and what's on tap for tomorrow. And we would write that down. And so they're starting to see that these squiggly lines actually have meaning, even though they can't read it yet. And it's so cute. As I said, I speak with my hand. So my hand is showing you what I'm talking about. Well, I'll start from left to right with my finger underneath the sentence so that they can see, and I'm reading it to them. And so we're just getting in a a little bit of reading practice, even though they're not really reading yet. They're getting the process and training the eyes going from left to right, things like that.
Okay, we have a few more questions in here that are different from the ones we've asked before.
Okay.
Okay, now I lost my place. Okay, thanks for the webinar.
Well,
I lost it again. I used it in a summer program for tutoring, and I can't praise it enough. From Nancy Akers. Are these lessons to be done daily?
We have lessons to be doing Monday through Friday. Sometimes you don't quite get everything done, and that's perfectly fine. The more you do, the faster you make progress. But it's a very comprehensive program, and there are days that, oh man, we just can't get to that. And I always say, please don't double up and try to do twice as much the next day, because that's going to just bring you down. We're just going to keep plowing through through the week. Sometimes it might take you a little bit longer to get through the program, so we always give you a couple of extra weeks. So or if somebody's sick or you go on vacation, you let us know, we pause you and we restart you, so that you don't ever lose out on getting through your program, kind of thing. If you're signing up for, say, a 6-week program, you get 8 weeks. If you sign up for an 8-week program, you get 10 weeks. We have month-to-month subscriptions. We have yearly subscriptions. The special is on the yearly subscription, and it's price-wise is really quite a steal. Let me see if I can't.
Okay, I'm going to go on with some of the questions, because we have to stop the recording.
Okay.
At no later than 7:30.
Okay.
So Christy says, we did your 8-week summer program and the kids loved it. I have 4 kids. They could continue with the fluency drills. I didn't save those. Would I be able to email your company and get copies or access to those items? I'm so glad they loved it and want to continue.
We have them available. We have just the fluency portion as a separate, I can't remember what it is. If you could email me, I can give you the information. I don't know I create everything. I don't know what the policy is for that.
Okay.
But we do have a way that I know is very, extremely affordable.
Here's another one by Carol. She says, is this program meant to be done daily, or can it be done 3 times during a week and then rest to be done on the weekend?
Yeah, you could do that.
Okay, that's the end of the majority of the questions. Sure. A lot of them were repetition. And so I thank you very much for going through all of them and answering them all.
Oh, no problem. No problem. That's what I'm here for. When you're with us.
It was a fantastic webinar. I thank you so much. You just have such a good way of explaining the topics, and I'm sure that your kids get it much faster that way.
Yeah, they tend to really enjoy, and the thing, it's so hysterical. For example, with the reading fluency portion of the program, parents will look at the sheets and they'll go, oh, they're going to hate this. And the kids love it because they get to see their progress daily. And even if you do it 3 times a week, they're still going to see progress. And
having the kids see their progress is so important, no matter what you're working on.
Exactly.
They need to see progress.
Exactly. So it's huge. So yeah, we do have the reading fluency training program, which is $47 for 1 whole year of online access. So I mean, it's pretty much a steal. I mean, we really. I am adamant about seeing that kids get help, and that things just don't have to be so hard. I'm trying to see maybe it's over here.
Okay, according to my watch, we only have 2 more minutes, so I think we've kind of covered it. And I just want to thank you so much. It was a great workshop, and thank you for offering that they can, write you with questions.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Like I say, reading's been too hard for too many people for too long. I mean,
absolutely, I agree.
I've been doing this for a very, very, very long time. I've been teaching for over 50 years now, and
oh my God,
I mean, it's like, and people say, "Oh, we've never seen something like this." Like, trust me.